A man from Gardnerville has been identified as the pilot of the plane that crashed into a Southern California home, killing 5 people. The pilot was 75-year-old Antonio Pastini. Firefighters continue to fight the Camp Fire in Northern California. This morning, the blaze has burned more than 150,000 acres and is 70% contained. A bizarre twist in some stories we told you about earlier this week. Reno police have confirmed a connection between a box of a person's ashes found outside a local tattoo parlor and an ongoing homicide investigation. We're hearing reports that a train has hit an RV in the area of 4th and Woodland in Reno. We're still working to learn more details about this, but we are getting reports of at least 1 injury. A hint from the Supreme Court this week that it may weigh in on the issue of abortion in the near future.
Yeah, this as the state of Louisiana is getting ready.
All right, men, listen up. Mainly Bill and Steve, your no-shave November beard might be something to consider having year-round. Yes, a new study suggests a majority of women who date men really like a guy with facial hair. They like the scruff, but not too much, that is. You can't have too much facial hair.
Can't have hipster facial hair.
No, the study surveyed about 8,500 women between the ages of 18 and 100. What a range. Researchers found a majority of the women preferred men with 10 days worth of facial hair growth. With today's top stories, over 20 cars were broken into during the shopping season locally. Sheriff's deputies are searching for the suspects behind this. It's getting to be that time of the year where this becomes more common.
That's just in Carson City.
Terrifying moments for a Florida tourist in Switzerland as he realizes moments into his first ever hang gliding ride that he's not strapped in. Oh, it's giving me chills already. So if people are wondering why Bill has some stubble, it wasn't, he didn't have a late night.
It's going to be a little grayer this time around than it was.
Back to a story we mentioned earlier. An explosion at a home in Floreston, California completely destroyed that home and also damaged others in the area. Let's check back in with Samantha Smarechniak, who's live from the scene this morning to tell us exactly what happened. Samantha, an incredible scene behind you. But first, let's get a check on that Halloween forecast with Steve. He's giving us some Children of the Corn vibes this morning.
Isaac, remember Isaac and Malachi?
University of Nevada police continue to search for a suspect after an assault on campus Friday night. Officers say the victim was able to fight off her attacker by elbowing him and slamming his hand in her car door. Today's headlines, a killer's chilling confession. The Colorado man sentenced for killing his wife and children comes clean.
Bullying in our schools, a major problem these days and only getting worse. Unfortunately, Nevada schools reported 13,000 bullying incidents last school year, and that's nearly 5,000 more reports than the year before. That's according to NevadaReportCard.com.
To reduce this number, the state created a new 24/7 hotline to combat bullying.
And News 4's Madeline Hunt introduces us to one Carson City mother and her emotional plea to parents and their kids to take action.
Carla was a beautiful soul. She would brighten any room she would walk in. Her laughter was contagious. I miss her.
Connie Elizalde says she visits her daughter Carla's grave every day.
I love you to the moon and back forever and always.
Carla had just celebrated her Sweet 16 in May, surrounded by her family and friends.
Happy birthday to you.
2 weeks later, Carla was dead.
She called me here at work and was crying, and I couldn't understand what she was saying. And I said, Carla, come down, I don't understand what you're saying. And she says, Mom, I took all my medication. And she died the following day.
Connie says Carla struggled at times with school, making friends and relationships, and would go through bouts of depression. But her mother says bullying was the final straw.
She would be walking down the hall and she was being shoved and pushed, and then this would spit at her.
Carla is part of nearly a third of students in middle and high school who say they've been bullied, according to a report from the U.S. Department of Education.
As a district, the #1 tip we are receiving right now is bullying and harassment types of tips.
In January, the Nevada Departments of Education and Public Safety launched the 24/7 tip reporting system, first in Washoe and Clark County schools.
We adults want to listen to students.
Safe Voice then expanded statewide at the beginning of the school year. DPS says so far it has already received a total of over 4,000 tips statewide since the program was unveiled at the beginning of the year. The majority of those tips have been reports of bullying, followed by threats made to students, harassment complaints, and suicide threats.
We want to make sure that every student knows that they can come to someone within their school and report these things.
Here's how Safe Voice works. A student downloads the Safe Voice app onto their phone, and with just a few taps or text to the hotline, they can anonymously make a report. That report is then received by a DPS dispatcher who forwards the tip on to school resource officers, administrators, and counselors.
I do believe that there's going to be opportunities for it to prevent a lot of tragedy within the community.
Preventing tragedies like the one that Connie says shattered her world.
She took such a big part of me with her.
For this On Your Side report, I'm Madeline Hunt.
Well, the Department of Education says the biggest challenge with Safe Voice is the 24/7 nature of the hotline. The DOE is working with local law enforcement and the mobile crisis unit to follow up on tips that come in at odd hours of the day.
Firefighters are there for the community, but the question is, who looks out for them?
News 4's Madeline Hunt explores the issue of PTSD among firefighters and joins us now with more on what's being done locally to help these hurting heroes. Madeline.
Joe and Shelby, the statistics are pretty unsettling. A fire department is 3 times more likely to experience a suicide in a year than a line of duty death. That's according to a report from the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. But one local department is trying to help their fellow brothers and sisters overcome these hidden hazards. You call, they come. Some calls tougher than others.
I had a baby that was, we had to do CPR and everything and ended up not saving.
For some, experiences like this can wear on the mind.
You do question sometimes whether you did everything correctly. I put a lot on myself.
Feelings of guilt, anger, self-blame all start to weigh on these heroes, many suffering in silence.
My first traumatic car wreck, I was told if you can't handle it, suck it up or get out.
That's been the culture for my whole career.
Battalion Chief Tim Spencer has been a firefighter for 36 years. Throughout his career, he's seen many of his brothers and sisters turning to alcohol or other substances to cope with the stress.
It's just like this horror show of slides, and it adds up.
A recent Florida State University study shows as many as 37% of firefighters could suffer from symptoms of PTSD. That could be higher than rates seen in combat veterans. In that same study, nearly half of current and retired firefighters reported having suicidal thoughts. That's just about 12 times greater than rates among the general public. When one of Captain Asbury's colleagues attempted suicide, she says she felt her former department didn't handle the case well. She knew she had to do something.
See if you want to make any adjustments to be a little bit more comfortable.
Trauma-informed yoga. It's just one part of the behavioral health program Captain Asbury developed with Chief Spencer to raise awareness about PTSD and suicide inside the fire service.
I want to erase that stigma and just make sure people reach out before it's too late.
Far to let the forearms rest on the thighs.
The program is a first of its kind for South Lake Tahoe Fire Rescue, giving these heroes some of the tools they need to heal their invisible wounds.
There are definitely ways in which we can be more empowered and have more control over the ways that our bodies respond to stress.
Winter says trauma yoga has been scientifically proven to improve symptoms of PTSD. The behavioral health program is almost a year old now, and Captain Asbury says she's starting to see the fire culture slowly change.
They're being a little more gentle. I see with it, the education's really starting to work.
Firefighters are used to helping others, so in the end, the biggest hurdle may be convincing them to help themselves.
I think that would be the thing, is everyone telling each other, hey, it's fine.
Reporting in South Lake Tahoe, I'm Madeline Hunt. Captain Asbury says South Lake Tahoe Fire Rescue is still developing their new behavioral health program. Asbury hopes this fine-tuning will allow her department to better deal with someone suffering from trauma in the future. Joe, back to you.
All right, great to see what they're doing. Thanks.